Innsmouth, stranger.
Hi, I'm Rob Whiten from the Innsmouth Book Club. Join me and my fellow guide John Chadwick as we take you on a fortnightly tour of Innsmouth. We visit places such as the Picture House, the Library and Innsmouth Museum to discuss all aspects of weird fiction, whether it be book, film, music, TV or art. As well as that, we stop over at the Gilman House to have a chat with a resident guest. That includes authors, artists, musicians, in fact Lovecraftian creatives of all types. You can find our free shows on Patreon, and there you can also sign up as a patron, which brings you bonus content, plus a monthly PDF copy of Innsmouth News, which features articles, author spotlights, all the latest news and reviews, and more. You can find us at patreon.com/InnsmouthBC. We hope to see you soon, because remember, Innsmouth isn't just a place, it's a state of mind.
Hey everyone, it's me, DB. New sponsor on the show, Glarry. Glarry offers a great price and better quality goods and services for music lovers. Are you looking for good prices, free shipping, 100% quality guarantee? Glarry's got you covered. Guitars, bass guitars, mandolins. They've got saxophones, trumpets, drums. They've got guitar cases, amplifiers, all the stuff that you need without having to break the bank. Inexpensive doesn't have to mean cheap. Check out the show notes to find more about Glarry. 20-watt amplifiers for under $50. Hard cases for your electric guitar for under $80. Guitars themselves for under $90. Come on, folks, check out the show notes. Get a Glarry. Hey, everyone. It's me, DB. Just reminding you, we have t-shirts in the shop. Just go to pgttcm.com. Check out all of our cool t-shirts and stickers. Heck, we even got some shower curtains in there. Keep clean, look cool, have cool stickers to put on stuff. Join us on Patreon, get a free sticker. Or don't. It's up to you.
You're listening to KZOM, Oleander Public Radio.
Greetings, listeners. It is I, TV Spitzer and Farmer Dave, here once again to talk to you about the Cthulhu mythos, its books, its monsters, its unfortunate human casualties, its timeline in general, and even its tangential bits, like the dreamlands or things of a weird nature that are Lovecraftian leaning. Once more we head into those dark woods, further feeling those malevolent forces upon us. Once again we walk down the lightless stone staircase in the middle of nowhere.
You're listening to KZOM.
Hello, everyone. It is I, DB Spitzer, here once again to talk to you about the Cthulhu mythos and all of the weird little bits and bobs that are associated with it. Here to my virtual right, as always, David Heath, Farmer Dave, wearing a very fanciful t-shirt today. That's pretty cool, Dave. It's some sort of pixie, and it's not quite tie-dye, but it is a multicolor, reddy, orangey kind of marbled looking thing. I have to say,
this is my thrift store. My thrift store score.
Yeah, no, very, very cool, very arts and crafts movement, with the I don't know, the pixie, the fairy or whatnot. It's very cool. I, of course, am wearing just a black t-shirt, medium black t-shirt, because that's what I wear at the office. And pajama bottoms for some reason, and flip-flops. So now if you're like, ooh, what's he wearing? You'll know DB's wearing. Anyway, yeah, so we're... Otherwise, hope you're all doing well. You're all clothed as much as you want to be. If you're riding the train, flying, listening to us in the car, hunkered down somewhere, listening to us, And this is not a audiobook episode. This is a full-on 2 to 3 parter episode.
I think we're going to do 2 long parts.
Yeah, 2 long parts this week. Dave will be talking about Nightgaunts, and then in the second part, D&D on D&D, these 2 Ds are going to be talking about the Necronomicon in your role-playing game. Haven't we done this before? Probably. This episode is brought to you by Copper Cow Coffee. I'm sipping on some Copper Cow cold brew right now because we are recording at 11 a.m. and I have another hour before I stop drinking coffee. And Copper Cow Coffee, you can make it as weak or as strong as you want. You are in control of the water, and they have so many just really good flavors, whether it be salt, caramel. I'm drinking the lavender because I do like that kind of like lavendery coffee flavor. Anyway, we're not talking about coffee. We're talking about...
So Copper Cow, are you listening, Copper Cow? I got a new bottle for you.
Ooh.
'Cause you can make it as weak as a cat or strong as a bull.
Oh.
Just throwing that out there.
Yeah. And later, tomorrow, I'm going to make some cold brew rosemary coffee, which is one of their new flavors, and I'm excited to try it. Rosemary flavored coffee. It could be amazing, or it can be awful. I'm not quite sure. I haven't had a bad one yet, so Copper Cow Coffee.
I vote amazing.
Yeah, and if you're looking for something else that's as black as night, there's these things in the Cthulhu mythos called Nightgaunts.
Yes, Nightgaunts. So Nightgaunts are almost, but not quite, a traditional Judeo-Christian demon.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, when you look at it, they're big, they're black, they have horns, they have claws, they have wings.
Yeah.
So, do you know how Lovecraft created Nightgaunts?
He dreamed them up as a child, I believe.
Yes, exactly. So, they were a reoccurring night terror. Now, one of the things about Nightgaunts that I always, when I first read it, and I was, probably a punk teenager, Nightgaunts seemed, their main offensive was tickling.
Mm-hmm.
And that seemed kind of stupid to me because I was a punk teenager.
Sure.
But, I want to kind of think of this. First of all, apparently in the original dreams he had, Lovecraft said that they stabbed at him with a pitchfork.
Huh.
So that kind of reinforces this 5-year-old boy's subconscious connection with demons. And the 20s, you watch old 20s, old 30s cartoons and shorts. There is this very sort of the devil as a character. You
sure.
Up and down. So he definitely, as a child, would have experienced that. Even though as a child it was 1895, but there's still going to be
depictions of devils with pitchforks and such. Yeah.
But here's the thing, though. As a child, tickling is sort of this huge sort of subconscious thing.
Yeah.
It's invasive. They have no control. They get picked up by the adults. The adults literally control their body, what's doing. So that could be a huge sort of psychological thing. And as I grow older, I discover that the type of relationship that Lovecraft had with his mom.
Yeah.
And his mom had this fear that, how you have a little kid and you have 2 adults, one takes a right hand, one takes a left hand, and they walk between it. His mom literally was afraid that he'd get his arms ripped off. So I think there are a lot of maybe unprocessed 5-year-old fears in the Nightgaunts. And that's why I think it's kind of relevant to us.
Yeah.
Because, this taps into something sort of So first of all, there is sort of this demonic, even, Lovecraft obviously was not a Christian, but there's something, we all understand the Christian demon tropes.
Yeah.
We're all aware of it, the gargoyles, so we all sort of see this. So it's there, but it also adds some new things, that they have no face.
Yeah.
And that's sort of scary, because you can't look at them face to face. And so, yes, they pick you up. They take you off the ground the same way an eagle or a hawk does like a rabbit. That rabbit, once it's in the air, it's helpless.
Yeah.
So these are, the fact that they use this sort of tickling is not it's not comical.
Yeah.
It was, and I think even in the games and other writers, that tickling part is downplayed.
Yeah. But no, it is definitely a what do you call it? It's an assault.
Absolutely, especially to a child, and I think we can all sort of keep that locked in our heads.
Sure. Yeah. Definitely. What else? What do you got with
Well, so Nightgaunts was also one of the first appearances in 1929. It's going to be one of his sons.
Okay.
We don't really see a lot of Nightgaunts in his stories. It's sort of in the house on a high hill.
Yeah.
It's connected with Nodens.
Sure.
Now, and in fact, we're going to talk a little bit about Nodens next week.
Yeah.
But there's always this association with Nodens, and then Nodens gets kind of moved from the outer gods, sort of this Delurthian heresy, is he become, an elder god.
Yeah.
And which, in Darylith's mind, are the good guys.
All right.
So we've got these basically demons that are working for the good guy. And when we talk more about Nodens really isn't the good guy per se, but he's more understandable. And we'll talk about him next week. But he looks like a human being.
Yeah.
He's also, there's mythology around him that survives in the Celtic mythology. Now, Brian Lumley, he ain't having any of this.
Yeah.
These Nightgaunts, these are too good of bad guys to make them, servitors of. And Lumley is very much, his Titus Scrolls are very much, and I love the story, but they're very much Delurthian heresy stories. The good gods are fighting the evil gods, and the humans are wading into the war.
Yeah.
Enough that he has, Cthulhu's brother leading the good side. So he doesn't want to give the Nightgaunts to the good guys.
Sure.
So he creates this basically goddess of the Nightgaunts, which is Yib Tistel, and again I'm sure that's mispronounced.
Oh, that's how I pronounce it.
Okay. Which is kind of the mother of the Nightgaunts. And the Nightgaunts are basically winged xenomorphs in Alien. They're not, but they're kind of close. Then, Yib Tistel is the queen xenomorph. And so he has this sort of very interesting thing where literally or figuratively, she's the mother. And what most people remember that is that the Nightgaunts basically suckle off of her.
But they don't have faces.
That's it. They don't have faces. So, do they develop, and Lumley doesn't go into this, he talks about it, but he doesn't really tell what's happening. So do they develop faces? Do they come to their mother and their faces change? Or is this more of a psychic sort of, or is it energy? Or is it a science that we don't know?
I just assume that where their face should be, a big hole appears.
You know, I honestly think, and there's a good chance that maybe this is what inspired Geiger. But I think a xenomorph is a really good representation.
Yeah.
But without the eyes or even the mouth, but that black armor, I think that's the way I imagine that.
Okay. I mean, that definitely makes Nightgaunts a little scarier than black rubbery flying things that tickle you without a face.
Yeah, especially to a child. Because when a child, you know, and again, I keep focusing on the fact that these were childish creations of Lovecraft.
Yeah.
But a child, you know, they take these in. The parent or the adult is mad. They can see on their face they were mad because they ran on the street. There's concern. These creatures, you know, children, a lot of their communication is reading faces.
Yeah.
And these you can't. That's scary to an adult, but especially to a child.
Yeah, I agree.
But wait, there's more. There's another person who is the master of the Nightgaunts.
Randolph Carter?
Well, I was thinking of Yamatar.
Oh, okay.
So, Yamatar. So, interesting thing. So, Nightgaunts appear in the 70s Marvel Conan comics.
Oh, okay.
Now, they don't appear the way that we've been describing. They're kind of like flying red furry pig bats.
All right.
So the thing you got to remember is that when Roy Thomas was basically told by Stan Lee, you've got to start a new line of comics that's not related to our superhero, and it's got to be an existing. It's got to be an existing property. And so it was The Lord of the Rings, Conan, Doc Savage, and there's a couple others. I think some 70s sword and sandal stuff. So they had they basically had a vote, and Conan won way above everything. Got more votes than almost everybody combined, including The Lord of the Rings. Now Marvel really kind of wanted Lord of the Rings, but Tolkien's widow just didn't want to play ball. Which sort of worked out because we got this wonderful 70s Conan comics. So Stan Lee makes Roy Thomas in charge. And he knows nothing about the mythos or Conan or Robert E. Howard. So, but it's his job. So he starts reading and starts really getting into Robert E. Howard and Lovecraft. And so he didn't grow up with it. He didn't have this around. So he's creating this from the books in his own mind. And a lot of people don't like Roy Thomas's work. I love it. But one of the things that he's going to do is he's going to find these Nightgaunts, and he's going to use them, and he's going to give them to this evil sorceress, whose name is Yamatar. And she's sort of the mistress of these flying bat demons, which are Nightgaunts in name only. what it also does is it allows the artist to draw these really sort of awesome Conan aerial combat scenes. But yes, that's another place that we get the Nightgaunts. Lumley uses them, Lynn Carter uses them. They really started to get used in Call of Cthulhu role-playing game. But again, they are very separate than the other two sort of winged beings, the Baki and the Migo. That they have wings, they come from space, but that's really about the only similarity. And part of that Lovecraft left out because they don't appear that much. Randolph Carter uses them in Dream Quest. They have their own poem. They're mentioned and connected with Nodens in, the House on the Hill. But it's just not. It left a lot of space so that game designers and later 70s writers can basically build them into their own creatures.
Very cool. Well, that's pretty cool, Dave. Nightgaunts are pretty cool. And, I mean...
As long as they don't tickle you.
Yeah, as long as they don't tickle you. And I was thinking they'd be pretty easy to put into any RPG. Just look for, like, fairly weak flying devils or xenomorphic type stuff or something around that nature. I think would make a pretty interesting, like, or just like, you take something that already exists and you just give it a new coat of paint and call it something else. And Nightgaunt is a good example of what you could call a flying demon and then add all kinds of weird details to it, and bam, you got yourself a new thing. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to be back talking about the book that connects so many things. I can't even get started on it right now before the break, so we'll be back talking about the Necronomicon, how to use it in your role-playing games, and we'll be back in a moment. Okay. This episode is brought to you by Donner. Check out the show notes to find a good deal at Donner. Like the sound of this? This is the Donner Island Delay, and the really cool Donner LP that I've shown off on, like, Instagram. Check it out. They've got some really good summer deals, and check out their snap deals as well. Use the link in the show notes to help support the show. Get yourself some cool musical instruments, maybe some patch cords. Cool.
Prepare for a spine-tingling, nerve-shattering podcast featuring all your favorite monsters. You won't believe your ears when you listen to Monster Kid Radio. Here your host, Derek M. Cook, and his ever-rotating stable of guests discuss your favorite classic and sometimes not-so-classic monster movies. Subscribe to Monster Kid Radio through iTunes or Stitcher. Or visit MonsterKidRadio.net before the next weekly episode of Monster Kid Radio. Go through the archives for interviews with Sarah Karloff, Victoria Price, and Joel Hodgson. Listen to discussions about movies like Creature from the Black Lagoon, Island of Terror, and King Kong. And don't forget convention coverage from Monster Bash and the HP Lovecraft Film Festival. Classic monsters, modern talk, and the head of Rondo Hatton. Only on Monster Kid Radio.
Thank you once again for listening to People's Guide to the Cthulhu Mythos. You can help show your support by going to the show notes and following any of the links that'll tell you how to support the show and how to support our guests. And thank you to all of our guests who you can find in the show notes. Rate, review, subscribe, and remember, patrons get priority access to asking us questions, suggesting topics, even, submitting stuff. Actually, you don't have to be a patron to submit anything. That's how Dave got on the show, and that's how you can get on the show too. It's the people's guide to the Cthulhu mythos. Rate, review, subscribe, tell your friends. Thank you for listening. Back to the show.
You're listening to KZOM, Oleander Public Radio.
Hey everyone, we are back. Dave, we're doing Batswatch next year, right? I mean, next week, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
cool. What do you got going on at Batswatch?
Well, of course, we're going to have the Batswatch kites.
Yeah.
Kites that look like Batswatch Festival. And the Batswatch meatballs.
Yeah.
So there will be music at Oblivions, and I'm really excited.
Yeah.
You know, there'll be the Batswatch parade.
Yep. I'm gonna do part of that. That's the big plan for me is Batswatch parade.
Yes, that's a pretty big celebration in
Oh, yeah.
Oregon.
Definitely. So, if you're in the area around Oleander in the week of last weekend of July is Batswatch Festival. So, get out there, show up early, find a place along Main Street. Oblivions has some seating on their ceiling, not ceiling, but roof of the building, so you can sit up there and catch the whole thing. I'm not going to be being like, hey, everyone, welcome to the parade, like a couple years back. I'm actually going to be in the parade marching for the radio station. So, yeah, I think I'm the only person. I'm holding a banner. So, yeah.
You're the only person with the radio station, or are you the only person in the parade?
I'm the only person from the radio station in the parade. No one else wanted to do it, so I'm just gonna...
We have occasionally had parades of one in Oleander.
Oh, definitely. So I think I'm gonna, stand really close to, I don't know, the high school marching band, so everyone will think that the marching band is part of me. I don't know. Anyway, so we've got Necronomicon, and we don't mean the convention. We're talking about the book.
The book.
So Dave, can you give us a brief history on the Necronomicon?
Okay, well, and we'll talk about, Lovecraft is associated, of course, with the Necronomicon.
Sure.
He came up with the term.
Yeah.
There's some arguments that maybe other people had used it centuries before. It's not really documented. So the answer, or the question, or the statement, or the thing that I'm saying, Lovecraft made it up.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people, there's a cottage market even.
Oh, sure.
Of real Necronomicons. The most famous being the Simon Necronomicon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which maybe we'll talk about on another show. What kind of really skyrocketed, I think, the Necronomicon was the Evil Dead.
Oh, sure.
And so one of the things that Rami sort of added to the Necronomicon was that it was basically the leather was made out of human skin.
Yeah.
Lovecraft never says that. In fact, the original writings of Allah Hazarad are scrolls.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They're not until centuries later collected into books. And I believe it was Clark Ashton Smith, though I think it was The Return of the Sorcerer. The closest they come to it is that the narrator says it smells like dead bodies. So I doubt that's where Rami came up with the idea of the skin, but that's where I think most people think of it. They see it, and the mind is that book with the face on it.
Yeah, from Evil Dead.
Exactly. But
Bound in human flesh.
It's kind of the ultimate MacGuffin.
Oh, yeah.
And Lovecraft uses it as the ultimate, because not only, you kind of, sure, I get that it would talk about maybe the Dunwich Horror, things like that.
Yeah.
But he also uses it as the point of narration for the scientific aliens in Mountains of Madness.
No, it's used kind of like a, hey, here's something to expect. Here's some unknowable knowledge that humans can't know. But for some reason, this guy, this guy knew some things, and he says there might be some stuff up there. Be careful, dudes.
And Lovecraft, in so many words that, I did not invent the idea of moldy old books in horror.
Yeah.
And he didn't, but I think he definitely sort of codified it.
Oh, sure.
And the book that I think most influenced him when he was growing up was 1001 Arabian Nights.
Yeah.
And so in a lot of ways, especially when we think of its origin, the Abdul al-Hazrat, the Mad Arab, it's very influenced by 1001, or the concept of 1001 Arabian Nights.
Yeah. I feel like people unfortunately treat it like a spell book, when I think it's more of like a collection of information and stories, and maybe, something written. It's like, there might be, pages and diagrams. I mean, we know that there's pages and diagrams, because some copies of the book don't have the diagrams or maps or whatever. But it's... Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I didn't mean to interrupt, but yeah, definitely, it does have spells, but you're right, it's not a grimoire. It's not a spell book.
Yeah. And, I kind of like the idea that it has, like, ancient funerary rites and, like, kind of like a rundown of, like, maybe part of it is a bestiary or something like that, but, if you, like, look at stuff that other people in that time period wrote, like us knowing what we know now and able to use Wikipedia as opposed to the Providence Public Library, there's a bit of a information gap there, and we can figure out how to spell things properly. We can figure out what kind of things would and would not be in a Necronomicon if we look at writings from that era, and that's just not how things were set up. And, then we have to think Aulus Wormus, who translated the Greek into Latin or something.
Who is a real person.
Yes, who is a real person. But the, maybe that version is supposed to... an organization of scrolls, and then, like, when it becomes the actual Necronomicon and not just a collection of scrolls written by Abdul al-Hazrat. So,
yes, and one thing that I think is very sort of helpful, and I marked some of his other things, is Lovecraft's history of the Necronomicon. So, I completely think that his family tree of the old god was a joke. I don't think it was supposed to. I don't take it seriously. I don't think anybody meant to take it seriously and got taken seriously. His copy of the history of the Necronomicon, though, is a great tool for writers and GMs. And he does that. He adds, Wormus, John Dee, one of the Gregory Popes. He puts real people connected with the book, as well as fictitious people. And that makes it much more, it's part of what he used to call the hoax, make people believe that this is real, and but from a literary point of view. So it's got an amazing background, I think.
Oh, sure. And, I really think probably the best way it can be used in a role-playing game is as a MacGuffin. Like, that's like such the best use for it. It's the thing that the necromancer hires you to steal, and then you find out that they're a necromancer, and you have to steal it back. And then the necromancer raises an army of the dead, and you have to fight the army of the dead and make sure that. Did I just recreate Evil Dead 3?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Pretty much.
So you know, it's the MacGuffin, it's the Maltese Falcon, it's the Holy Grail, it's the Ark of the Covenant, it's the Necronomicon. It can be as gory looking, it can, be a human flesh, bound book that stinks of rotten bodies. It can be, I don't know, say you're doing a World War II, and there's now a German copy of the Necronomicon written in Fraktur, using the Fraktur typeface, the super scary Nazi typeface that, people get in trouble for using because, it's the Nazi typeface. Anyway, oh no, this is like super evil now, because not only was it translated by German theologians, but also it's a translated version of the Necronomicon. 15 people went crazy translating it, and 12 killed themselves. Anyway, you can do stuff like that. What if it's not a book anymore? What if it's a file, and someone's trying to...
A database.
Yeah. What if someone's trying to release it onto the internet or something like that? You're doing a early 2000s Delta Green campaign. Someone's trying to release it to LimeWire, and you've got to pull out the CD or the hard drive that it's hooked up to before it slowly downloads all the way to LimeWire, Kazaa, one of those things.
There's a Cthulhu Light series, I can't remember what, where the book, the cover was taken off, and it was rebound with a New York City phone book, back in the phone book, the 80s. So, and it was being used to keep a table straight or something.
Oh, that's funny.
Because people had forgotten what it was.
That's funny.
So, yeah, absolutely. And I think where really, if you're interested in gaming something like that, where it comes up being online is the GURPS Cthulhu Punk.
Yeah.
I think they have that where you've got this sort of Tron-like virtual reality universe.
Yeah.
I did one where it was a cyberpunk.
Sure.
And there was no supernatural, but the mission was basically they were working for Miltech. And Miltech had gotten attacked, and Miltech's clients got attacked by a bunch of netrunners. And so they basically had this general contract out for the netrunners.
Okay.
And so they traced one down into Brazil, who was this big, Jorge Lovecraft, who was a big Lovecraft fan.
Mm-hmm.
So there was no supernatural, but his web construct was all based on Lovecraft and the Necronomicon.
Gotcha.
So even though it wasn't like one of those variations where there were vampires or something. There was in this artificial reality and this virtual reality.
Yeah.
And so the sort of instead of a node or wherever to get information, the Necronomicon appears.
Gotcha. I thought it was more along the lines of, he's attacking us with black ice that looks like, Nightgaunts. Yeah, I was like, what were we talking about earlier? That's right. Yeah, no, I like that idea. That's pretty cool. To have your architecture for your little personal metaverse in a cyberpunk game, whether it be Shadowrun, Cthulhu, punk, cyberpunk, whatever. But yeah, no, that's a pretty cool idea. You know, in a modern campaign, like Delta Green really has you covered. Gumshoe has some stuff that's really great. I'm sure there's a lot of modern campaign systems out there that you can slowly slip the Cthulhu mythos. And what's a better way to introduce the Cthulhu mythos than having people looking for Necronomicon? But first, you know, maybe someone sees or hears about like a book called The King in Yellow or something like that. That's always kind of like a nice little peek into the fact that there's something weird going on. But then you have like full on like, I don't know. We know that it's over 756 pages because in the more correct Wilbur Whately says that it's like, the formula on page 756, you know, he doesn't have it in his copy.
And not in any of the stories, but Lovecraft, in a note to someone, describes something on page 948.
Okay, so we know
so it's close to 1,000 pages.
At least close to 1,000 pages. And it's not described as a small, thick book. So this is a big, heavy tome with a big, heavy leather cover and at least 1,000 pages. Big heavy pages, big heavy cotton pages, if this thing is still around. Books bound. Here's the thing. The book itself may be magical if it's still around. I mean, we don't know what the pages are made out of. I assume that it's cotton if it's still around, and, you know, the leather and all that kind of fun stuff. We still have books as old as Alias Wormus's Necronomicon. I'm trying to remember which Necronomicon is the first bound Necronomicon, first real, which I don't know.
I think it is maybe the Latin, maybe the Spanish. Another thought, and something that definitely I think sort of contributed to this is a real book is Lovecraft's commonplace book.
Yeah.
Where he would just write things down. And the same sort of concept is in the early 20th century, late 19th century, is the family Bible. It's not, I mean, there may be some value, maybe even historical value in these family Bibles, but why they were so important was people would write in them.
Yeah.
They would write genealogies, they would write notes. I have, and it's about 110 years old, is a copy of my mother's uncle or great uncle, a copy of Byron's poems. And in between it is with this thing, and I can't read it, and I'm afraid to sort of touch it, so I have it wrapped up and preserved, writings of what he thought of the poems. And so, a GM can add something like that. It's maybe not the book that's important. It's what the later generations added. And I think Lovecraft even mentions, like, and the Whateleys, you know, wrote things in the margins. So that could be sort of the more of the clue.
Okay. Interesting. Well, we know that multiple copies exist. In Lovecraft's universe, there was one in Buenos Aires. People knew of. Pickman had a copy. British Museum, Bibliothèque Nationale, the Whitner Library at Harvard,
Miskatonic University,
and of course Miskatonic Universities, and that's 1, 2, 3. It's like how many are there supposed to exist? I don't know. But then again, Greek printed in text in Italy in the 1500s, and a black letter edition in Germany, late 1400s. I'm sure there's going to be a few copies. Apparently it's banned everywhere and burned regularly. But I have a theory. I have a bit of like heretical thought, and I'm kind of not sure if I want to share this or not, because I might use it for a project. But what if Abdul al-Hazred and the al-Zif, supposedly written in 700 something in Damascus, what if it never really existed? What if Pliny the Elder was just taking scrolls from like various Arabic and Judeo-Christian scholars, like people who shouldn't be messing around with this stuff, and if they, were found messing around with this stuff, it would be kind of heretical to like Christianity or the Catholic Church or stuff like that. So you have Oleus translated from Greek to Latin, quote unquote, but what he's actually doing is taking all of these various scholars and creating a book on this other thing. Anyway. Just a heretical theory. Kind of like my Cthulhu doesn't really exist.
And in ways it's more the thought of the book.
Yeah.
And there's some other people who've written sort of in thought, in reality, and stories. Maybe it's not the Necronomicon. Maybe it's the dark side of the Ashek text, the sort of psychic books that have all knowledge.
Yeah. Ooh, interesting.
And maybe it's a physical manifestation. And enough that people would say, well, maybe Lovecraft hooked onto the psychic realm and became aware of it through dreams. And apparently he have a dream on. But the other part, there is one copy of the Necronomicon that you didn't mention, which is my favorite.
Oh, which one's that?
The Golden Goblin Press version.
Oh, I didn't have that on my list. Golden Goblin Press.
So there's no spells in it.
Okay.
And it's so what I honestly think this is based on, and I don't have, is you gotta remember in the 1910s, 20s, one of the biggest selling books, besides of course the Bible, is going to be, and it starts out as like 9 books and it's condensed into one, is Fraser's Golden Bough.
Oh yeah.
Which I think in the Call of Cthulhu game, you can actually get folklore points and history points by reading it.
Okay.
But so there's this attempt to take all these 9 books and take all the sexy fun stuff and condense it into one book. And that's kind of what Golden Goblin Press does. And again, I think it's 1910 or something.
Sure.
So it's kind of like a Mythos light book because there's no spells, and it's only got like a couple points of Cthulhu knowledge. But if that's the only source, or maybe there's this wannabe cultist, that's all they can get.
Yeah.
So I've always liked that. And then even in some of the modern games, there's the trade paperback version of the Necronomicon, which is like with 1 point of Cthulhu knowledge and like 3 points on occultism, and that is obviously based on the Simon Necronomicon.
Yeah.
But so people have this feeling. Again, it's a lot of it's playing with your character's expectations.
Sure.
Well, if I get the Necronomicon, I'm going to be this powerful wizard. not if you get the Golden Goblin version.
Yeah. No, and I feel like I really hope that the game master who gives their players the Necronomicon isn't going to treat it like a wand of many things or like a recipe book to the universe, because it's a mistranslated book with all kinds of dubious details and dubious authorship.
Sure.
It's like I believe there's some versions where like the spells are actually like gonna hurt you instead of, you know, where the spells are mistranslated, and you know that may not be the best thing for a summoning spell.
Yeah. Now, and it's rare in this universe and in this reality, but you know, it might be much more common in a fantasy world. You know, we think of it as a spell book.
Sure.
But you know, maybe it's the book where the party gets their missions from.
Yeah. But what honestly, how I like to treat the Necronomicon is you have to like read through whole sections. Like even I think the Call of Cthulhu rules are like this. Yep. It's not like a recipe. It's not like laid out in a way that you just go, oh, okay. I just have to do steps 1 through 12 and make sure I have goat's blood and silver powder, salt, and an iron bar with fresh blood on it, and I'm good. I can talk to Sathagwa for 5 minutes, and I'll need fresh blood if I want to talk for another more minute.
Deposit 2 pints of virgin blood to continue conversation.
But yeah, it's not like, you know, it's like the formula on the recipe to make the powder of Ibn Ghazi is like on a page, but it's like how it's set up, I'm sure, is like you have to be like read it over and over and over again, write it out, and be like, wait a minute, what are they trying? Okay, now I got to look up the, you know, old timey equivalent of this measurement. And yeah. I don't think it's very straightforward. I feel like it's written in analogies and, you know, stuff that, like, maybe Al-Hazred or other people didn't get at the time, like things, like, they didn't understand the concept of a universe and stuff like that even, and, like, scientific thought hadn't gotten to things that they're learning from, like, dark ancient entities about the universe and about like physics and just cosmology in general, and like something that seems like basic to a great old one has to be written down in a formula for humans to be like even like try and understand 4-dimensional space or stuff that seems like magic to us that is just like second nature to a mythos creature.
You know, absolutely. And the other thing, say, like the Bible, you know, yes, you know, the Bible is, you know, supposed to be sacred text.
Sure.
But it's also the history of a Bronze Age people.
Yeah, it does have recipes in it too, but it's not like the recipe for making bread in Ezekiel is not very straightforward like how we would think of it as a recipe. It's like someone telling, it's like an oral tradition recipe that we would look at nowadays and be like, what the how much is that? Where do I even get these ingredients? And that's what I think of as the Cthulhu mythos, is like if you're trying to like read a colonial cookbook and none of it's written out, and you're reading colonial diaries thinking that they're cookbooks, and every once in a while you get a little piece of, you have to like go through everything and context clues, be like, oh, they're talking about corn here, okay, so I have to soak the corn in lye water, okay, but
Yeah, exactly. And you know, I like to use it, you know, sort of scientific things.
Oh, sure.
There may be this whole thing about this magic, deadly rock that if you touch, it'll kill you and
sure.
glow in the night. and it turns out they're talking about uranium.
Yeah. Or you could use it to Yithians saw something and they talk about it, but Abdul al-Hazred, when he talks to the serpent people or the serpent person, who was swapped with a Yithian and heard about things in the future, isn't going to know how to describe, World War II. or atomic bombs or anything like that. You got this game of telephone going on, like this ancient ass game. There's probably stuff from the Book of Ibon in there. There's probably stuff from other ancient tomes, like little bits and pieces of stuff here that was picked up and gleaned, and this is kind of I feel possibly not necessarily crib notes for the Cthulhu mythos like so many people treat it, but just kind of I don't know, history of the journal of a guy who in 7 whatever AD kept a record of his life and all the things that he found and what he was looking for, heretical and whatnot, and discoveries that he made. I don't know. I mean, he may have gone into the Necronomicon with one purpose and left with something completely different. Maybe he had heard about some wizard that existed in Earth's ancient past. He heard about Hondur, or he heard about Ibon, and he wanted to really figure out if this stuff was real, if this magic stuff was real, if spell books are real, and started going about collecting this stuff. Or if we're going with the heresy, Aulus Wormus or other people, or Aulus Wormus collected all these little treaties and little formulas and whatnot from all these people who had done these horrendous experiments that maybe are being shielded from other people, whatever. But no. I mean, the way that you set up the Necronomicon can be, I don't know. If you're in a cyberpunk game and you're looking at on your tablet, oh wait a minute. If you're playing a modern game and you're looking at it on your tablet, it may be organized a little bit different than if you find a Latin copy or Greek copy or something like that. Ooh, what if you found it in Coptic? You find it in Coptic.
Or you're playing in Cyberpunk and it got translated into city speak.
Oh yeah. But what I was thinking is it would be strange if you found it in Coptic, but it was clearly using a printing press.
Oh yeah.
Melt people's brains.
No, I think there's definitely a lot of potential there.
Yeah. What do you think the best system to use the Necronomicon in, besides the obvious Call of Cthulhu and Cthulhu in the title games?
I mean, obviously, yeah. And sometimes what I would do is I would use the Necronomicon, but I'd give it a different name.
Okay.
So I'd have a little bit more control over it.
Sure.
Other than that, I mean, the idea of a modern sort of book, I did a modern game, I did an old top secret game, and there was, the Necronomicon was, a creation of Lovecraft.
Sure.
But there was a contest, the people writing it, and someone in there had put in a code.
Oh.
So, so it would get to the Russians, they'd put it in the supercomputer, and they'd look for every 117th letter to spell it out or something. So, I mean, that's one using where the Necronomicon is real. And in this case, it was very powerful because this guy had hidden a lot of knowledge, stolen information in it, but it's not supernatural.
Sure.
And so he basically, there was like a contest, and he submitted it, and the Russians were going to break in, and so this was back when there was still a Soviet Union when I wrote this, and so but they didn't want to tip off that they knew it, so the team had to break in and figure out which one was which.
Interesting. I was gonna say my favorite way to use it, not in like a game like, you know, the Cthulhu or horror or anything like that. I want to say Dungeons and Dragons, but Dungeons and Dragons is too easy because you have sorcerers and you have monsters and you have spell books. But what if you do it in a cyberpunk campaign and you borrow a little heavily from Snow Queen or Snow Crash? And you have like a digital book, not like a little phrase that if you read it, it does something, but a book that if you read it, it starts to rewire your brain. While, like, say you're in the Matrix, you're in the Nexus, you're in cyberspace, you're in whatever you want to call it in your fantasy world, the place where you plug something into your head or, you know, Bluetooth your brain onto something, whatever it is in your fantasy world, you have a bit of text. And as you read the text, it rewrites your brain. It's the Necronomicon. It's the Technonomicon. But no, it's, and, you know, it for all these years, people were like, oh, it's this old spell book, and everyone else is like, it doesn't do anything, it's not real, it's just a bunch of stuff that some guy made up in the 20s, and then some guys in the 90s put their name on it and made some money off of it, and then just put a bunch of stuff that they found on the internet on it. Or, you know, a bunch of stuff that they found public domain and then just slapped it in there and then sold it. This isn't real. This isn't anything.
Added Lovecraft to Sumerian mythology.
Yeah. And, you know, kind of like, what was it, the Simon Necronomicon or whatever? Yeah. Or, you know, even like maybe like some Levian Satanism thrown in there for good measure. And it's nothing but because of the fact that it carries this harmonic frequency that is older than time itself, because sorry to say, maybe the Necronomicon is real in Cyberpunk 2077, Cyberpunk 2020, Cyberpunk Project Red, or what's that called? What?
Red.
Okay. So, and then it just like starts rewriting people's brains as they read it, and as they read it, the book wants them to read it more. Maybe it acts like a drug. Maybe it rewrites them to be able to cast spells. Maybe it rewrites them to be able to see in fourth and fifth dimensional space, like a Tillinghast resonator. Maybe it has different properties the further and further you go on. And maybe the further and further you go on, you become less and less human, and not in a cool, fun way where you can like walk through walls, but like physically, like I don't know. Who's the guy? The body horror guy?
Cronenberg?
What's that?
Cronenberg?
Yeah. Maybe you start to Cronenberg a bit, and yeah. No, I mean that's kind of like. And maybe it doesn't happen to the main character. Maybe it's happening to people they know. Maybe it's happening to their club. Maybe it's happening to like a friend who's in another gang. Maybe it's happening like all over your city and no one knows why. Even though
instead of a teleporter with the fly, you know, it's doing it's the book.
Yeah. It's what's making you into a deep one, or maybe it's what's making you into some sort of just otherly thing.
You know, I think that is a very the idea that it's a catalyst.
Yeah, like maybe it's a book that, you know, rewrites your genetics into like making you like the Migo or something, you know. And that's what its whole point was. Like, it doesn't matter what you typed, but as long as it has this, like, fourth dimensional psychic presence, it's always going to be there. No matter what you do, if you're like just recreating kind of like a bit of it, it's going to come through in some way. And that's the power of Necronomicon.
Yeah, no, I definitely like that, and that it has this effect on reality.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it's kind of like this idea that, that books affect reality, but, by what they're inside, maybe this literally affects reality.
Yeah, one thing I've always liked to do with the Necronomicon is make it so that it kills small animals, insects, and plants in like a 20-30 foot radius, so Henry Armitage occasionally has to sweep up mice.
Okay.
Or like moths drop dead at like a certain point, but it's like maybe that's the first mystery you have to find out is like, hey, Henry, Jill, figure out what's going on with this place. I keep having to pick up. There's like things keep dying in this area. It's like attracting things and killing them, like small things. Can we do something about this? The bug problem here is crazy.
No, absolutely.
I think that's a little bit of Prince of Darkness that's always rolling around in my brains, all the bugs and that.
The bugs.
All right. Do we have anything else that we want to talk about with the Necronomicon, Dave?
I think we've done an excellent job today.
All right. Hey, if you have any...
Yay us.
Yeah, yay for us. Come see us at Sasquatch. Come and have a beer with us, or me at least, after the parade at Oblivion's. Come see the live music. Stinky Duck is gonna be there. And also, be safe. And yeah, there's so many ways you can use the Necronomicon. Write us, tell us your favorite. If you have something that you want us to talk about, if you have a book that a project, a game you want to talk about, we are here for you. Contact Dave to get on the show if that's what you want to do. And if you have any cool stuff, contact me, pgttcm@gmail.com. I occasionally check it. And we'll check out what you got to send us. All right. Thank you so much.
Don't send your cool stuff to me.
Yeah.
I might drop it.
And don't just message me, hey dude, and then expect me to pick up the ball, because I don't. I'm sorry. I am really sorry. People who have like just tried to friend me with hey dude. Did I tell people just to message me hey dude at some point? Oh crap. Okay, anyone who I've just ignored, I'm sorry about that. Remessage me with the phrase high fives. I will remember this time. Okay. Everyone, be safe, be cool to each other. Don't take any wooden nickels. Don't take any wooden Necronomicons. And be weird and keep it squiggly.
Yes. Bye, everybody.
Bye. That was a good episode.
Yeah, I think that's got a lot of stuff in it.
Oh yeah, no, that